I shared a story last time about my grandmother walking up to a hole in the ground saying, "It's nothing but a hole in the ground." I got part two of that story. It's meaningful and leads us into today's prophetic update, prophetic podcast. Well, when I was growing up as a child and I dreamed about this, I've forgotten about it. It was major. I grew up in this Catholic neighborhood. It was kid heaven. And we all came together and we dug this huge hole in the backyard of the Thomas's house, our next door neighbor. And we ended up with a tunnel system. Now, there was a lot of rock and it didn't go very far, but it was a major achievement for all of us as a bunch of kids together, just mapping out how we were going to do the tunnel, how we were going to get these rocks out of the way. And I mean, literally hours upon hours were spent on digging this hole in the ground, and it was huge with shovels. Now, compared to what an excavator could do, didn't look like much, but to us kids, it was huge. So we get all our parents, we put plywood on it, we put dirt on it. We thought it was hidden from them. Obviously, they all knew and saw us digging in this hole. Well, we opened it up to them. And when they looked in it, that was their response. It was nothing but a hole in the ground. And they walked away. To us, it was a tunnel system between the network of the whole earth coming together and us being the central hub for the planet for good to go forth into all the lands. So they did not see it that way. What's the point for us is we can say the latter house is not going to be as great as the former. It's nothing but a hole in the ground. But God is inviting us in, and He's inviting us in, and the time is now. Time is now. He gave me these continual dreams, and it's not just me. Others are hearing this. And it was dreams of time capsules. And these time capsules were in different cities, different lands, different mountains, arenas of life. And the time capsule, when it was opened up at the appropriate time, would open up the knowledge of God. In that mountain, it would open up who the reformers were, what kind of reforms they were to bring forth, who they were to partner with, what were the obstacles, how would their family walk together. It was just so deep and so rich and multi-layered. But the time capsule had to open up at the appropriate time in the appropriate places. And so in the dream also I saw how the blue light would come to different cities or areas. One of them was Cleveland. There was many with me years ago. I was with Mike Bickle, Bob Jones had been there, and I was with some others, Bob Frazier, I believe Kevin could have been there at that time. And I talked about how Cleveland would get its respect back. This is back in 1981, I had a dream about 7 cities. And one of them was Cleveland. It wouldn't be called a mistake by the lake. Now, it sounds like I know that information, but back then I didn't know. And I said how some had called it the Psalms 18 city, but it was going to be the Psalms 102 city. Would sing a new song. And I spoke about some distinctives of that city. Psalms 18 is a warfare psalm. It has more challenges in it, but does have victory in it. And I had not known that Bob had called it the Psalms 18 city. And he had seen rightly, obviously. It was just the Lord was giving the thought for me to give as well. But through the years, I would continually see that there was things happening under the ground to bring forth the seeds of God, to bring forth the tree of God, to bring the big hole in the ground, open it up, a foundation for reformation to come forth through Cleveland. Well, now we know in Cleveland and the sports mountain, amazing things are happening. In the political mountain, amazing things are happening. In the business community, the urban core has been revitalized. Cleveland is getting its respect back. And it's going to be an amazing hope center for a number of areas. Everybody's going to have the places that are their inheritance, land of their inheritance. So it's the time capsule is opening up for Cleveland. And I saw some places that were to go in Cleveland. I believe there's a vineyard there, a couple of other places where there's a timely message to just remind them of their promises and to help them to decree their promises so that they might walk into it and help put people in place in a different way than it has been in the midst of the revival or the church age. So this is a step one of our leadership shift, is to realize it is now time that God is making this shift. So the time capsule is opening up, and I gave you the picture of Cleveland. I also want to give you a second picture. I'm on the way to Chase, and Chase is a picture for us. When I met Shay, one of the first times I spoke something to him, which I will share with you. And it's very important as we enter into this time. I said, it started on 2020 Woodland. And I don't believe it broadcasted anywhere. I think it's a home. But I talked about their movement. And the Lord has through the years showed like 5 stages or season when the time capsule would open up for different eras of their movement, what they were to do and become for the sake of the church and the earth. And I shared with Pastor Che about his own journey and it paralleling what happened with the movement. And so this 2020 Woodland, Pastor Che's response, his response was, that was the first place we were at. Didn't speak it to him at that time, but I had had a dream. And the dream had been about the year 2020. And the year 2020, my dream was back in the year 2000 with the Y2K challenges going on. I had stored grain and bought a farm with some others and thought it was the time of the end and a cataclysmic end. And I have the dream in the middle of Y2K time. And it's a dream where I got off a spaceship and I walk off with other leaders, and it's the year 2020, and it looks like the book of Eli, apocalyptic devastation. And there's a narrator, which the Lord represented. And then that scene is there for a while, which I expected, and then it's gone. And then all of a sudden it's splendid cities, Deuteronomy 6, 7 through 10. I find it now in a number of places in Scripture, just that cities that were God's joy. It's a radiant city in front of us. And I say to the Lord, which one is it? And he turns to me and says, Deuteronomy 30:19, you choose. And it was choose Joshua and Caleb, the 2 spy perspective or the 10 spy perspective. And it was like, how can I dispossess the nations if you won't believe in me and believe in who you are in me and that I'm greater than he that's in the world? And so Che is at a time, this movement, we're all at a time where we're making a choice, whether we're feeding our children on sour grapes or the despair of the past, the emphasis on the enemy, the emphasis of trading God for the clouds, or where we're emphasizing the greater than God and how he's working in the planet. And we are not interceding, like it said with Elijah, that he interceded against Israel because there's nobody else and it's all going to hell. And God said that was an intercession against Israel, where I was saying, no, there's promises, and I want to turn the desert into a place where it blooms. We are looking into a hole in the ground, and it's more than nothing but a hole in the ground. It's a time capsule opening up of his promises for movements, for churches. There's pockets of resignation for cities in different places where the enemy has done his best to sow this give up spirit like he did to Moses. You don't have anything to say. God is coming and thundering in us, to us, that the year 2020, the 2020 Woodland for Che, there's been so many signs and wonders, and that was one for his movement, that he's entering into as a patriarch of hope, and many of us are of painting paradise and jumping into it, seeing what no eye has seen, see with more with our eyes closed than our eyes open, and inviting all into this new narrative that God is bringing forth. In order to have that happen, there must be a leadership shift immediately, fully, and one is expectancy. that we're looking with expectant bones for the promises. I just close with this. You have an invitation, like the days of Jesus when he was birthed on the earth. They came to Zechariah, the angel, spoke about John in Luke 1, said, you and Elizabeth are going to have a baby. He said, how can this be? Too much resignation, too much rejection, too much despair and negation. He could not see it. The ultimate promise is coming to the planet, the very Son of God, and John the forerunner, and he says, how can this be? Which camp will you be in? The second camp was Mary, who is told as a 16-year-old girl, we believe, you're going to have the Son of God in your womb. You're going to be a virgin, give birth. There was no precedent for that. She asked a question that was similar but from a different heart. And it says, how is this possible? And the angel tells her, and she says, do it to me according to your will. She just needed a point of clarification, and she responded where he had Zechariah resignation. This can't be. She said, how can this be? I love this. I'm open to this. And then you have Simeon and Anna, and they're an amazing couple of people, and they're older, and they're able, like Moses, to discern what God's doing, the very form of God, in a little baby. Simeon sees a little baby, the seed of God. I don't know how. Those trained eyes of hope and faith, sees a promise for the planet, holds it up, this baby, and says, here's a hope for Israel. Here's a hope for the planet. There's hope for the planet. There's hope for reformation of the planet. Make a choice to not be a Zechariah by the grace of God. Might have had challenges. Look into the hole in the ground. It's not nothing but a hole in the ground. It has this time capsule opening up of promises like for Zechariah, like for Mary, like for Simeon and Anna, and choose to respond to what God is opening up. Ask him, and he will instruct your heart and get with others that are filled with hope because you're so, so, so important. The enemy wants to sow doubt addicts. He wants to sow doubt in people, then become addicted to doubt, become in the prisons of their own making, and sow their doubts and infiltrate the earth with it, and despair. We will be the exact opposite. We're going to be hope addicts, indomitable hope. We will not take a put down to our promises. Ask the Lord as we enter into this next sharing time about the promises that are opening up for you, your family, the time capsule for the city, for you as a reformer, others that are around you, and be able to do the Philippians 3:13 and 14. Forget what lays behind. Don't dredge up the past if you don't have it figured out. Press on to this upward prize and this call, this great gift of the future that he has for you. I love you, bless you. Amen.